tape right now because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden is the best Biden ever.
They used to have it over there. They changed it when it's a little, throws me off a little too. Yeah.
Change.
But it still works, right? Okay. Hi, everybody. We have special guests with us today. He is a leftist social critic. What does that mean anymore? I don't know what that means anymore. I don't know what he's against the war, so he's probably a right winger. That's what I think. He's against censorship, so you know he's MAGA. I don't know. Anyway, he is a citizen journalist and a commentator. It's Nick Cruz, who's also a host and co-founder of the Revolutionary Blackout Network. Welcome back to the show, Nick Cruz.
What's poppin', Jimmy?
Good.
They so crazy now. Like, what does it even mean to be on the left anymore?
That's I know.
We have leftists cheering for the CIA, FBI, NATO. You got NATO leftists. You had the squad that's now part of K-Hive, Jimmy. They're now enthusiastically endorsing the cop, Kamala Harris. So I like to view myself as what it means to truly be on the left. If you took the original definition when it spawned from the French Revolution, someone who is advocating for social change, for the betterment of the working class. You can't call yourself on the left if you support the military-industrial complex and you believe that they actually work in good faith, and that's essentially the social democrat wing. And I'm a fierce critic of them, and it's very confusing to the left-right divide. A lot of people stuck in 2015. Like it's way different now.
No, when you say the Social Democrats, do you mean the DSA?
The DSA,
yeah.
You have CPUSA, you have people who claim they are communists. You have people who claim they're socialists who then make an argument why we should vote for genocide Joe Biden. And I don't associate with those people. If you're not on the streets organizing, if you're not doing mutual aid, you're just a fan of said ideology. You have CPUSA that endorsed Joe Biden, and now they said to endorse Kamala Harris. And I don't associate myself with those leftists. The United States left, in terms of the global stage, is considered a joke. I talk to global international journalists all the time on RBN. Like, they laugh at the idea of a U.S. left, and that's what we're trying to build at RBN. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Being a leftist is being gaslighted to death in the United States, being upset that you don't worship war criminals. But that's what we try. That's what we try to do. We try to advocate for a real left that's critical of all wars, a true anti-war, anti-genocide, anti-ruling class coalition. If that's not what you advocate for, which is the social democrats, the Bernie Sanders, who believe in the devil's bargain that they should sell out the global working class and support war so they can get crumbs. That's not a leftist in no sense of the imagination.
So I heard someone explain it like this: the big difference between the left in the United States and the left, say, in France, is that in France, the left is connected to workers, blue-collar workers, right? In the United States, the left is represented by the professional managerial class, and what they worry about is how many people of color do we have on the board, instead of, hey, how do we get a living wage for everybody? How do we get health care for everybody? So they're more concerned about identity politics in the United States than they are about actual material helping out of the working class and raising their economic standards, right? That makes sense.
And things are so messed up in the United States, Jimmy, because like, how do you even get started? For example, the Tories in the UK, they're considered a right-wing party, right? They support universal health care.
I know.
That's a right-wing party. So what are we even talking about in terms of the United States? Because what is considered left is so far removed. AOC, Bernie, they don't even talk about Medicare for all no more.
Don't even talk.
And I completely go ahead.
They don't even talk about the public option, which Joe Biden ran on.
Yeah, and look, there are a lot of people, especially a lot of pretend socialists in the United States. They believe what it means to be a socialist is advocating liberal social policy. They think they're socialists because they advocate for trans people, because they advocate for whatever rights they talk about. That has nothing to do with what it means to be a socialist. I've rejected all forms of liberalism. I'm very socially liberal, by the way, but that has nothing to do with politics. The culture war generally have nothing to do in politics. So just to understand how to highlight how confused a lot of people in the left are. Do you guys know that there's a lot of communists and socialists in the global South who are extremely religious Christians who are against abortion, for example? So the Bernie left, they would cancel the same Black evangelical voting base that support Lula, for example. Lula is very socially conservative because he has a large base of poor Black evangelical socialists who advocate for the needs and benefit of the working class, but they're not for abortion, man. Then they have anti-gay thoughts, and the left in the United States will cancel them. And to be clear, I'm very socially liberal, but I don't consider that politics. That's a culture issue, and socialists and left should be worried about working class issues, connecting people to challenge the ruling class. That's not our battle. To be battling among bourgeoisie culture wars. That's what I truly believe.
That's a great point that you never hear anybody else make but you. Is that the people in the global South are consider themselves socialists and for real, and they would be canceled by the liberal class in the United States because of they don't adhere to their policies on abortion or the LGBTQIA plus. So that's a really interesting point that people, yeah, they would cancel them. They would call them MAGA because they don't play along with the identity politics. And by the way, we all got a good lesson during COVID that the people who used to say "my body, my choice" never really meant that. What they really meant was they were pro-abortion. They're not for a woman's right to choose because they're not for a woman's right to choose not to take an experimental medical therapy called a mandated vaccine. They're not. They were for the mandates. They were for Joe Biden, who mandated those vaccines. He had to be stopped by the Supreme Court. And so they're not. So I'm actually for bodily autonomy and my body, my choice. And they would say that makes me a right winger. So if you're for my body, my choice, you're a right winger. If you're anti-censorship, free speech, you're a right winger. And if you're anti-war, Ukraine war, you're a right. So all these things that to classic lefty positions, they've now managed to make people think they are right-wing positions, which is why all my asshole friends from Hollywood and comedy call me a right-winger, because I don't go along with the Democratic Party, which is an anti-worker, pro-war party, pro-Wall Street party. They don't even have any idea that the Democratic Party isn't a left-wing party. As you point out, if Joe Biden was a politician in the UK even, he would be considered an extreme right-winger because he's against universal health care. That would put him all the way on the outskirts of on the right. Anyway, well, that was I didn't realize that that introduction would lead to such an interesting conversation about what it means to be left and right, but that certainly was interesting. Let's clip that and make it its own clip. There you go. Boom. We already have a clip done today. Isn't that nice?
Yes.
So I wanted to show you this. Speaking of that, they're already losing their minds, right? So they're not going to talk about Kamala Harris and the liberal class, the MSNBC. They lied about Joe Biden for the last 4 years, saying that he was sharp as a tack, sharp and focused. Joe Scarborough said, F you if you don't think this is the best version of Biden ever. And then here we are just about 5 minutes later, and everybody's wondering if he's dead from dementia. So here we are. Here's what they had to say about Kamala Harris and the hate coming her way. Listen to what constitutes hate for Kamala Harris.
And I've heard from inside Republican circles and right-wing media that the hate campaign against Kamala Harris has begun. You'll notice they purposefully pronounce her name wrong. They say Kamala. They do it all the time. It is on purpose. But the talk is to start that hate campaign and get it going and start it churning.
So if you mispronounce her first name, if you call her Kamala instead of Kamala, is that, which one is it?
No, it's Kamala is wrong.
Kamala is wrong.
I'll say it.
It's Kamala?
That's what I think.
So
let's hear it again.
Let's hear it again. Let's hear what she said.
And I've
Maybe
heard
she
from
messed it
inside
up.
Republican circles and right-wing media that the hate campaign against Kamala Harris has begun. You'll notice they purposefully pronounce her name wrong. They say Kamala. They do it all.
Oh, okay. So saying Kamala is a hate crime. And because they do it on purpose. They on purpose they also stretch out their pantsuits, and on purpose the only reggae person they can name is Bob Marley. That's also on purpose. On purpose they pledge devotion to Israel and withhold evidence that would exonerate the incident. Oh no, that's what Kamala Harris did. She did that anyway. So do you think that's
Jimmy DC?
Go ahead.
Jimmy, do you see how they also said, because you had this clip with Mika saying, essentially implying that people were being racist by mispronouncing her name. You also had MSNBC that had a clip I covered where they essentially say you're being a sexist, you're being misogynist if you bring up how Kamala laughed, like that cackling, awkward laugh. They're saying that's people stereotyping women leaders who are not allowed to show emotion. Jimmy, they're just getting started, brother. They're just getting started with this nonsense.
So it seems like the again, it's going to be 100% this kind of crazy talk from the Kamala Harris or Kamala. I can't remember which way I'm supposed to say it.
You said it right.
I'll say it.
How about the K-Hive people they're gonna say that any criticism of her is racist. Mispronouncing her name is on purpose, and it's hate. It's hate. Do you think that's not hate, right, Nick? If you mispronounce her name, is it?
No, me. I'm personally in shambles, man, Jimmy. I feel like you're being extremely insensitive to my community. I know we have AIPAC funded Zionist hate rallies where Israelis are calling black people the N-word as never covered on MSNBC. But man, people calling mispronouncing. I don't know her name Kamala. They try to pretend that she's in the black community. She's Indian. I don't know say that. I don't know say her name either. She's not raised by black Americans. It's been the biggest psyop campaign that I've ever seen, that they try to connect black people with Kamala Harris.
So what you're saying is she wasn't. So here, you know what? That brings up a very interesting point. You said she wasn't raised by black people. So let me jump over to this. So here is Don Lemon, and I don't know who this woman is he's talking to. Let me get this all set up. But what he's going to argue is that Kamala, isn't that the woman from The View? That's April Ryan, I guess.
No, that's not the woman.
No, it's not. He's going to argue that Kamala Harris is not African American. Now, you just said she wasn't raised by black people. Her father was Jamaican, right? And her mother was Indian, not American Indian.
And she was raised by her mother.
And she was raised by her mother. Okay.
Yeah. In fact, her father disavowed her because Kamala Harris made a joke mocking her Jamaican family descent, stereotyping them as pot, drug users, and her father, who is a Marxist intellectual, took great offense to that. And said that their ancestors would be rolling in their grave if they saw that Kamala Harris essentially stereotyped their family as Jamaican weed smokers, like she has done. So she has no connection, and even then, I have solidarity with the international international black people, but she wasn't raised in a black household. And that's just a fact. She was raised by an Indian mother, and she's Jamaican. So the psyop trying to push Kamala as being relatable to the black experience is completely false, especially considering she's directly responsible with locking black men up, keeping innocent men in jail. She put civil asset forfeiture, which studies show steals around 65%. 65% of people impacted by civil asset forfeiture are black men. And that's the policy that she pushed to bankrupt our community. And she did it from the outside in, not from the inside, looking for the best for the black community. And this is what black people knew about Kamala. We knew her. This is not a reintroduction. The liberal class trying to say we just reintroduce Kamala Harris. That's not going to work. She ran before and only got 1% black support because we did our research and saw the massive damage she did to the black community. She pushed for sentences for nonviolent offenders because she believed in slave labor. She was a big advocate of slave labor. So she kept innocent men in jail, advocated for harsh interpretation of the law so the state can benefit from slavery. The biggest enemy of the black community you can possibly ask for is someone like Kamala Harris.
Well, here's what Don Lemon had to say, and this was I don't know exactly when this was, but it's a while ago because he was still on CNN. So here we go.
When you see her blackness, but she is also South Asian. Her mom is South Asian, and her dad is Jamaican.
April, let me listen.
Yes.
More power to her, and I think it's great. That should be enough. Listen, it is enough that she's a black woman.
We are not a monolith.
But no.
But they did the same thing.
No. I think you're not hearing what people are saying. The people who are saying is she black enough, that's bull. That's BS. But to want a distinction to say, is she African American, or is she black, or is she whatever? There is nothing wrong with that. There is a difference between being African American and being black. Latino people are people of color, but they're not black. They're brown people.
She is a woman of color, but she is a black woman.
Okay, that's fine. I agree with that. I agree with that. But is she African American? No. But is she African American? There is a difference. There's nothing wrong with that. No one is trying to take anything away from her.
Let's go down into her lineage.
I think you're falling into the trap of that. All she had to do was say, "I am black, but I'm not African American." That's it.
Don,
I'm not falling in a trap. I'm not falling in. Let me finish. Hold on. I'm not falling into a trap by that. When she goes down her lineage, many Africans landed in Jamaica and all these other Caribbean islands. So she could indeed be African American mixed with other races. But she is
Jamaica's not America.
But she is a black woman. She was born here. Okay, well let's go into Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz was born in Canada.
So you could always depend on Don Lemon to get to the heart of the superficial bullshit. So is that, first of all, does it make a bit of difference? So someone from Jamaica, he makes the point that they didn't come out of Jim Crow. They're Jamaican, not African American, but she is black. They all agree that she's black. Does any of that make a difference, Nick?
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. The reason why I bring it up and the reason why I think it's significant, because the corporate media is lying to people about Kamala Harris' heritage. They keep saying she's black. They keep pretending that she lived her life as black. Do you guys know in 2016 when she ran for Senate, she ran to be the first Indian senator? I showed this on the RBN in my live stream today. And when she won, it was announced that California announced their first Indian senator.
Well, here it is. California Harris, first Indian American U.S. Senator. That's how the AP reported it when she got elected. Attorney General Kamala Harris, or Kamala, I'm not sure which one's not hateful, wins the open Senate seat to replace retiring Democratic Senator Barbara Boxer in a race that featured and then here it says the victory for the 51-year-old Harris makes her the first Indian American senator. So
at the age of 51, the tender age of 51, Jimmy, she found her black roots. And when she wanted to run, that's when she marketed herself as a black woman.
And then when she wanted to run for president, Biden picks Kamala Harris as running mate, first black woman. Well, what the fuck?
Yep. I'm sorry I got ahead of your presentation, but this is exactly what I was referring to. And truth matters, doesn't it, Jimmy? Like at the end of the day, her race is very insignificant. But I'm bringing this up because I don't want my people to be misled. You have the corporate media that is pushing this lie. And I'm going to speak from my personal experience and what I know from my community. We would adopt you. Like, Kamala, if you Indian, that's cool. We could adopt you. But you got a white man husband. Like she had a black husband. Black children, and she advocated for pro-black policy. She's part of the cookout, but she's a Zionist.
I want to show what you actually, you said Kamala Harris is in the primary only had 1% black support. This is the person liberals think will turn out black voters. K-Hive was a bunch of white women cosplaying as black. Black people hate Kamala Harris.
And gay white dudes, too. Someone fixed that, and that's why I added to that. It's mostly gay white dudes and some white women that was cosplaying as K-Hive.
I'm going to say a hive of mud wasps is more popular than K-Hive. And I'll do you one better. You say she only got 1%. I bet you that 1% weren't even human. I bet they were bots. Okay, that's my guess. And I thought she was going to pick. I bet she picks Elizabeth Warren as her running mate. Then they could have an all Indian. Anyway, the whole thing. Kamala Harris was getting dominated in the black vote by Elizabeth Warren. You tweeted out. Is that true?
Yeah, she was losing to the first transracial candidate to the black vote. And yeah, according to Quinn PA, that's the poll that was quoted by Fox News. Elizabeth Warren had 8%, and Bernie was like 2 times higher than Elizabeth Warren. Remember the smear about the white Bernie bros, even though Bernie was doing second best to Joe Biden? Unfortunately, you had Joe Biden had like 46%, but that's the Obama rub. That's the scourge of black neoliberalism that RBN exists to oppose. But what does it say that this radical, this person who's clearly connected to the streets, you see Elizabeth Warren's, had got 8 times more support than Kamala Harris. But the narrative, because I'm a psyop buster, that's the only reason I do what I do. The narrative is that Kamala is going to be someone who's going to take this on for Joe Biden as he struggles with the black vote. And that's not going to happen. They know it's not going to happen. They already smearing black men, Jimmy. We're sexist. We are white adjacent, according to Joanne Reed.
You're white adjacent. Yes, I know. I saw that.
Yeah.
So she's basically the roulette wheel of racials. She could be anything she wants, and she could be black. But here, I like this Kamala Harris facts, or Kamala, I don't know how to say it. Raised in Canada, not California. I didn't know that. Did you know that?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Here's another one. She's not African American. She's Indian and Jamaican. We already talked about that. Her political career started out of an affair with a. Oh, that's when she was with.
Yeah.
Brown?
What's that? Willie Brown, right, from San Francisco. He appointed her to a couple of boards, and that's how she got.
The allegation, Jimmy. The allegation, once again, the allegation is that Kamala slept her way up to power. Good for her. I mean, doing what she had to do, that's politics for you. But that's the allegation. Regarding the fact she was raised in Canada, that's to my earlier point, Jimmy. And I said before, if you know, we would adopt you in the black community. I mean, if you're around us, I mean, you in our community, you will be easily adopted in our community. But Kamala's not there, guys. That's the point I'm making. Even if she's not full black, that is not the point I'm making. The idea that she's African American, that she's understanding our experience, it's completely fiction. That's my main point. But go ahead, Jimmy.
Also, there's more to it. It says she imprisoned over 2,000 black for minor drug charges and held them past their release date for free county labor resource, in some respects, slave labor. Now, I know about this because they actually had to sue her twice. They took her to court. A judge ordered her to release prisoners twice. And she said her office argued in court that they didn't want to release those prisoners because they needed them for the free labor. That was for real. That was an argument they made in court. The people that worked for her, not her specifically, but the people from her attorney general office, when they argued why they hadn't released the prisoners that they were ordered to release, they said because it would upset the prison labor system. Do you know that, right?
Yep. Yeah. And this is it wasn't white liberals who took Kamala down. Like, do people think white liberals is the reason why you had Kamala surge in support after the debate where she called out Jim Crow Joe for his racial segregation policy, and after that, interest in Kamala Harris surged. It wasn't the white liberal establishment; it was Black Twitter. Black Twitter looked into Kamala Harris, and we saw how many black men, how many black families she destroyed. Like her advocacy for civil asset forfeiture, her destroying these families. What do you guys think the consequences to the family when this when this stuff happens? We had civil asset forfeiture pushed in our communities. We had the breadwinners of our families taken out of the workforce. It devastated our community. It's not something that we can forgive, and that's why she struggled with the black vote, and she will continue. Right now, there may, according to polls, she's still losing to Trump. But the second that people who don't know she is investigate her record, people are not going to buy it. No one's going to support her because there's nothing worse than a traitor.
Well, also, I didn't know this, that she is a descendant of Hamilton Brown, one of the largest slave owner traders in Jamaican history. Did you know that?
Did not know that, but I'm not surprised. Not surprised.
So,
it's class over everything, of course. But go ahead, Jimmy.
So here she is. She's being asked what she's going to do specifically. This is from the Griot. She's being asked what she's going to do specifically for the black community, and she doesn't have anything she's going to do. In fact, she brags that she's not going to do anything specifically for the black community. Listen to her answer.
So by default, it affects black families, but there's not a particular policy for African Americans that you would explore.
But no, if you look at the reality of who will benefit from certain policies, when you take into account that they're not starting at the same place and they're not starting on equal footing, it will directly benefit black children, black families, black homeowners, because the disparities are so significant. So if we focus on the specific issues that have resulted in the greatest disparities, and we understand that that's part of why we're doing it. Listen, the reality also is this. Any policy that will benefit black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people. No, because whatever benefits that black family will benefit that community and society as a whole and the country, right?
So that just seems strange to me. Now, I've often, well, let me juxtapose it to this. So here is when she's asked, what are you going to do for immigrants? And here she has a litany of things she's going to do for them. Let's listen.
On January 20th, 2021, if you are president, what specifically would you do with the thousands of people who try to reach the United States every day and want a better life through asylum?
I would tell them, don't come. Okay, anyway. that was her message when she went down to Central America. Anyway, let's listen to what she says.
Immediately on January 20th of 2021, I will, first of all, we cannot forget our DACA recipients, and so I'm going to start there. I will immediately, by executive action, reinstate DACA status and DACA protection to those young people. I will further extend protection for deferral of deportation for their parents and for veterans who we have so many who are undocumented and have served our country and fought for our democracy.
Wait, undocumented. I didn't know there were undocumented veterans.
I didn't either.
What in the shit is she talking about? You mean using illegals for military service? I mean, I've heard of that, but once they're veterans, I'm pretty sure they're documented. Okay, anyway, but this is more about how she's got a litany of things she's going to do for the undocumented and not one thing she was going to do for the African American community.
I will also immediately put in place a meaningful process for reviewing the cases for asylum. I will release children from cages. I will get rid of the private detention centers.
Listen to all these things she has.
And I will ensure that this microphone that the President of the United States holds in her hand is used in a way that is about reflecting the values of our country.
So I just find it, I mean, I've said that if you get everybody Medicare for all, that helps everybody, including black people. I've said those things like that. If you raise the minimum wage, that helps everybody, including black. The best thing you can do for everybody is to get them a living wage and health care. But it's funny that, she now wants to highlight her blackness, and when asked what she's going to do for African Americans specifically, she doesn't have anything, but she had a litany of things she was going to do for undocumented immigrants. So anything you'd like to say about that, Nick?
Yeah, you took the words right from my mouth, because there's actually an idea that you said that I agree with, that I think we both agree with, that if you uplift the black working class, you uplift everybody. And as a Marxist, as someone who is class conscious, a revolutionary first, I tell people all the time, especially my poor white brothers and sisters, advocating for healthcare lifts everyone up. When you look at the black community, we have the highest percentage of medical debt. We struggle the most with healthcare costs, and our life expectancy struggle because of that. But Kamala Harris is against single payer. So if you focus on class-based politics, you will lift everyone up. That's the first thing. The second thing I want to focus on, this is what a lot of the criticism on Kamala and the Democrats generally is from radicals, that, oh, you don't have a black agenda. Oh, you're not doing this for us. You don't support a minimum wage. in the year 2024, to be honest with you guys, that's not my criticism of the Democratic Party no more. My criticism of the Democratic Party is not what they're not doing for our community. It's what they're currently doing. Right now, the Democratic Party, led by Democratic mayors, are building cop cities all over the United States. It's the Democratic Party that is overseeing and facilitating a genocide. It was the Democratic Party and Joe Biden that bombed Somalia. My criticism of the Democratic Party is not what they're failing to do, it's what they're actively doing right now. And Kamala Harris was there every step of the way. I'm already seeing people that was part of the uncommitted campaign that said they wouldn't vote for Joe Biden because of genocide start to soften their approach regarding Kamala. No, Kamala Harris is just as guilty as Joe Biden regarding the genocide in Israel. Joe Biden wrote the crime bill, but in order to have the crime bill, you need foot soldiers to implement it. Joe Biden wrote the crime bill. Kamala Harris was part of the foot soldier apparatus that implemented the crime bill, and she should never be forgiven for that. But go ahead, Jimmy.
So, well, this is when Tulsi destroyed Kamala.
Yeah.
And so she touches on those things you're talking about. Let's just listen to that.
Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
So all those things are correct. She's correct about all those things. She fought to keep, not only that, but she also criminalized truancy, right? Which, who does that affect the most, right? And she bragged about it. And let me show you, I'll show you one more thing, which is this is really stunning. She gave this speech, and I can't believe someone let her give this speech, but she's going to brag that she funded prisons more than schools. Let's listen to this.
Wow. I have friends like Eva Patterson. Okay, so I say with all love and warmth that part of the concern also for people who are progressive thinking and liberal minded, or just progressive thinking in terms of just fix it, is that we all have these posters in our closet that is attached to a stick that we sometimes will card out when we're talking about criminal justice policy and those statistics that you first heard when we opened it up, incarceration. And we run around with these signs, build more schools, less jails. Build more schools, less jails. And we walk around everywhere, build more schools. We protest, build more schools, less jails. Put money into education, not prisons. There's a fundamental problem with that approach, in my opinion. And it's this. I agree with that conceptually, but you have not addressed the reason I have 3 padlocks on my front door. So part of the discussion about reform of criminal justice policy has to be an acknowledgement that crime does occur, and especially when it is violent crime and serious crime, well, there should be a broad consensus that there should be serious and severe and swift consequence to crime.
So that's her message. She's mocking people who say build more schools and less prisons. She's literally mocking them. She's validating everything that Tulsi just said about her. You're saying the black community knows this about her.
Yeah, and Jimmy, if Trump is smart, he's going to attack her on this. Just wait. It's only a matter of time for Trump to attack Kamala Harris for locking up a ton of black men. He already beta tested and used that attack a lot on Joe Biden regarding the crime bill. And I know I'm a little bit ideologically biased here, but I think it would be a giant mistake if Donald Trump tries to paint Kamala Harris. Like I saw Sean Hannity try to say she's a far left radical Marxist as she's advocating for the prison industrial complex. And I know I'm biased, but I think it would be a giant mistake if Trump does that. If Trump tried to paint her as the next AOC, what he needs to do is to point out how she betrayed our community. If Trump runs an ad and point out how Kamala Harris locked up black men, it's a wrap, fam. well, whether he does it or not, we see he snatched defeat from the jaws of victory before, because I think it would be very dumb to try and paint this corporate sellout who does the bidding of Israel as some sort of far left radical. If he does that, he gives Kamala a chance. If he tells the truth about her ideology, it's a Trump red wave, baby. But we see how the GOP handled this, because I've already seen indications that they're gonna pretend that she's some sort of Hugo Chavez or something.
She's a communist or something. But what? Yeah, you're right. What they should, if I was advising them, I would just say you talk about her real record, that she was part of the Biden administration. Joe Biden brags about the crime bill, never apologized for it. That's why black and brown people are locked up at way higher rates, because he had those mandatory minimum sentences. He made crack be way worse than white powdered cocaine. All that stuff came from Joe Biden, not from Donald Trump. In fact, Donald Trump did the STEP Act, which let black people out of prison. So he should highlight that contrast for sure, that that Donald Trump let black people out of prison, and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden made sure they stayed in prison and were put in prison. That would be that's the way to go on that. And I would just show that her mocking people, more prison, more schools, less prison. Yeah. What, you're gonna mock that idea? You're gonna mock the idea of more schools, less prisons. And in a country, we're the world's largest penal colony, right? We imprison more people by raw numbers than China. By even not percentage-wise, raw numbers. We have 5% of the world's population. We incarcerate 25% of the world's prison population. It's crazy what we do here in the United States. And why do we do that? Because Bill Clinton and the Democrats and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have been in bed with the for-profit prison industry and the slave labor that they get. So we didn't stop slavery in America. We just shifted it to the prisons, right?
Absolutely. And that's so well said in that clip. Kamala Harris sounds no different from the most unhinged Reaganite.
That's right.
But as we said in our earlier conversation, what does left and right mean anymore? Because you have AOC and Bernie Sanders endorsing the person you just showed, who sounds like a Reaganite. And there's a reason why many former conservatives or Republicans with Trump derangement syndrome feel so comfortable within the Democratic Party, because they have the exact same ideology of Ronald Reagan. Regarding criminal justice. That's why it would be a giant misstep if Trump tried to pretend otherwise. And I think it's funny regarding what you said, China, they have 4 times higher population than us despite having less prison population. And many people believe they're the authoritarian country. What does it say about our country that we imprison 1/4 of the world's prison population while calling ourselves the land of the free? Why we have so many Americans that have to take prescription pills, antidepressants, just to get by in this country, as they try to pretend that our system is somehow better than China or Russia. We are the authoritarian country, and we don't have the moral high ground over anybody.
So I want to play this for you. Here's a black woman, and she's not pro-Kamala, and listen to what she has to say.
So the DNC, the GCCC, and the Democratic Party all actively forgoed a primary process, and they were telling us that Joe was ready to go, even though you and I both knew that Joe probably hasn't known what day it is since about 2022. And now we're expected to support Kamala Harris, who, mind you, is not only a member of his administration, so an active participant in what is going on in Gaza, but she's also a cop, a prosecutor who ruined a lot of black families in California. She was actually so unpopular in her home state that she had to drop out of the 2020 race prior to the voting because she kept coming in 5th place in all the polls. So no, I will not be supporting Kamala Harris. I don't care how much they black girl magic her over the next couple of months. I will not be supporting Kamala Harris, and you shouldn't either. Democratic nominees are voted for. They debate. They actually go through a real primary process. Kamala Harris did not do that. Joe Biden didn't even do that. And I want to be very clear that when Donald Trump wins in November, that it is because of the fact that the Democratic Party, the DNC, and the DCCC have decided to forgo democracy because they do not actually care about upholding democracy. Anyway,
so there you go. I mean, those are some great points.
Yeah, big shout out to Afeni. That's my RBN sister, Afeni. I did a lot of work with her. She does a lot of amazing activism every single day. So it's great to see her spitting knowledge at facts and fire. And she's 100% correct. There's literally no way you can get the Black community to support Kamala. And Democrats are the victim of their own anti-democratic agenda. They canceled the primaries. They forced Kamala Harris down our throats, and now they're paying for it. No one's gonna vote for Kamala Harris. It's gonna be such a massive landslide. We see how Trump and GOP run against her. If they paint her just by highlighting her policy, I think that would be enough, and that will expose her for being a traitor to our people. It's not we would think Trump would do better. It's about getting people who are part of the Democratic coalition staying home. I think Kamala Harris is the person that would do that.
Well, Trump actually did better by Black people in prison when he was president. So I'm not a Trump voter, but that's a fact you can't deny, and that's why a lot of Black rappers actually are publicly supporting of Donald Trump, and that's why he's getting 22% of the Black vote now. His percentage of the Black vote has gone up, and Joe Biden's has plummeted. 31% drop in support from Black women, according to the polls. So there's a reason for that.
This is a great time for third parties, especially with all this chaos, especially with an opportunity to build an anti-genocide coalition, because we have both parties as corrupt they are right now, and we have such a democracy that is fraudulent, especially on one side, especially we have con artists on the other side. Now is the time to advocate for workers' policy. Now is the perfect time to push for a third party now that our duopoly being exposed as the fraud that it is. I'm greatly enjoying this. Like, this is a great time to cover news. We should be greatly enjoying the chaos and the ruling class expose themselves as the authoritarian anti-democracy agents they paint their enemies as. Well, go ahead, Jimmy.
I just wanted to reinforce what we've been saying. Here's even the Daily Beast is on to her. Kamala Harris's Attorney General's office tried to keep inmates locked up for cheap labor. She was ordered to reduce the population of California's overcrowded prison. Lawyers from then California's general office made the case that some nonviolent offenders needed to stay incarcerated or else the prison system would lose a source of cheap labor. That's from her office.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court ruled that California's prisons were so overcrowded that they violated the Constitution's prohibition on cruel and unusual punishment. 3 years later, in 2014, the state was ordered to allow nonviolent second-time offenders who have served half their sentence to be eligible for parole. But by September 2014, plaintiffs in the class action lawsuit were back in court, accusing California of slow-walking the process, which lawyers for Harris' office denied. According to the court filings, lawyers for the state said California met benchmarks and argued that if certain potential parolees were given a faster track out of prison, it would negatively affect the prison labor programs, which allowed them to fight California's wildfires for $2 a day. Anyway, so it's horrible. This incident is just a small part of Harris's long career as a prosecutor, which has drawn scrutiny from Democrats and activists who describe her as a latecomer to the social justice movement. As far as I know, she did very little, if anything, to improve the criminal justice system when she was Attorney General. Don't forget that Kamala Harris was laughing about imprisoning parents over their child's truancy, and that it disproportionately affected already oppressed populations. Let's listen.
I would not be standing here were it not for the education I received. And I know many of us will say the same thing. And I believe a child going without an education is tantamount to a crime. So I decided I was going to start prosecuting parents for truancy. Well, this was a little controversial in San Francisco.
But it is funny.
And frankly, my staff went bananas. They were very concerned because we didn't know at the time whether I was going to have an opponent in my re-election race. Wow. But I said, look, I'm done. This is a serious issue, and I've got a little political capital, and I'm going to spend some of it.
So she started to...
Yep.
Wow. So here, this is great. This is a mural of Kamala Harris, and it's a mosaic. I'm sorry. It's a mosaic of Kamala Harris made out of the Black men she kept in prison beyond their sentences to use as free labor for the state of California.
Yep.
So
she also fought she withheld evidence that would have freed an innocent man. and she fought to keep an innocent man in jail just so they can continue to use his labor. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, that's to me that is stunning. And that this is the angle that Trump should go at her. But first of all, he's going to win anyway. She's the most unlikable. She's another Hillary Clinton. She's completely repulsive to most people, including black people. So she doesn't have a base. She doesn't have a base. This idea that her base might be suburban white women again, but that's it. Anyway. So let me throw it to Steph, and I'm going to set up one more segment about Kamala.
Oh, all right, Jimmy. Thank you so much. Oh, I had a conversation once with a friend, and we were talking about, and Nick, I'm kind of curious what you think, but I was talking to a girlfriend, and I'm like, well, she's not African American. Her family was from Jamaica, and she also moved. I did know that she had moved to Canada. I did know that. I think after that first debate when she said, I was one of those children in the bus, Joe. But so what should I say? Or is it even a conversation, Nick, that you think anybody should have about, is it more class? Is it more of a class issue with Kamala?
You stole the answer right from my mouth. Because I was about to say, more than anything, not only did she have no experience with the African American community, she's outside our class. Mm-hmm. Like she's been a part of. She slept her way to the top. She was a prosecutor, so it would be different. And I know it may be hard to understand, but if you was around the black community, you grew up in the black community. Let's say you're mixed. You marry someone black and you guys have black children, you'd be part of the black community, and there'd be debates and all that stuff. But most important is class and where you stand. She was nowhere near in our community. The closest she got in our community was locking us up. That's why saying that she's black is absurd. And the class element is a giant part of it as well, because as I mentioned before, she's not part of our class as well. So
right.
She's
so
just an enemy on offense.
I agree. I do think it's more a class issue than her heritage, if anything. It's a class, and then her class of being a prosecuting attorney, and then she was in lockstep with all of Biden's legislation that he pushed through. He might say in 2019 he regretted it, but the fact of the matter is she was right there prosecuting, using that legislation to, convict, young men, young women, and hurt them for generations. Ultimately,
here's what you can come to me.
Make it sing for me. Now make it sound angry. Check your B string.
Uh-oh.
Sextuplet sequence of G. Ionian starting on the tonic. Make it sound like my old lady's cat.
Which one?
The tabby. Okay, now make it tell a joke. Who's there? Say that again. Oh, Dwayne. That's a good one.
That's a dirty one.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there for more AM Joy and the rest of MSNBC. And click on any of the videos right here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. And you can get more videos from MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit
Isn't it swell? The memes make themselves. They found a rabbi hole, tunnels and all. There's Jews in the walls. Isn't it bliss? The rabbinical grace soiling the mattresses. Well, let me tell you. If I were Rabbi Shmuley and diddle 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 digga digga diddle diddle dum, all day long I'd diddle little bums. If I were a Shmuley man, I'd peddle all my dildos, dreidel dildos, selling dildos with my daughter and her mum. If I were a Jewish Shmuley man, I'd be digging with a dildo in my bum. I'd wear a grotesque nose and go grab some goyim right on the nipple with a pinch. A Shabbos lap dance brace for the youngest mensch.
At this time, more than any other time, you know, revolution is necessary. It is necessary. Not only based on what has happened with the MOVE organization, you know, the babies that have been murdered, you know, MOVE adults that have been murdered, bombs being dropped on us, but past that to what is happening with all black people, so-called minority people, you know, money poor people. You know, this government, as has been said earlier, has waged war on us. But you know, something about us, particularly here in America, we don't really understand that. You know, we don't really know what war is. You know, for black people, for poor people, that people see as good, that they wasn't forced to do, that they didn't do to try to keep black people appeased, you know, and calm down so that black people wouldn't riot. A prison situation is a crystallized example of that. You can make phone calls in prison. They have movies in prison, but they don't have those things because they just want to be nice to prisoners. They have those things because they know damn well if they don't have, you know, people being able to contact their family, if they don't have, you know, facilities for people to sit there and watch movies, people are going to be frustrated, upset, and they're going to direct that frustration at them prison administrators, and they're going to have riots on their hands. You know, they're going to have people in them prisons turning them prisons out. That's why they have movies. That's why they have access to phones the way they do. And a stop to it when we don't like it, or encouraging it when it's something that's in our interest. You know, we have to call the shots. The people have to take the reins of this system and start dictating, you know, what we need, what needs to be done. And, you know, taking the initiative to do it ourselves. We can't rely on this system. I mean, you know, don't people see what's happening? Every single confrontation that MOVE people have been involved in, every single issue, you know, oppression, economic issues, every single issue facing our people, you know, is something that can be dealt with very, very simply. All people got to do is make their wishes known. All people have to do is stand up and say, listen, we're not accepting that. Unity is the key. Unity is the key to revolution. Revolution ain't nothing to be afraid of. It ain't nothing to shy away from. Revolution, contrary to what officials, you know, this system and those backing the officials running this system, you know, want people to believe that revolution means violence, you know, means blood in the street. I'm saying it can get to that point, but it don't have to be violent. You know, when people come together and take a strong stand on an issue, this government don't have no choice but to listen. Where you think they get their authority from? They don't have no power, but they do have authority to do certain things. Where you think they get it from? They get it from us, from the people. You know, they get it from us accepting the things that they do to be done to stop it. Then you have some people who want to then turn around and say, yeah, well, you know, it's the best we have, and want to make excuses. The time for excuses is over. It's over. You know, every man, woman, and child has to be involved in this revolution. Not only has to be, but is, whether you want to be or not. I mean, our babies gave their lives for this revolution on May 13th. You know, men, women, and children were murdered. And not just move babies, you know. What about all of the young men, women, you know, children 8, 9 years old shot down on the street by cops, you know, by drug pushers? I mean, you know, where do you think that mentality comes from? It comes from this system, from the mentality of this system of getting over, you know, making a quick buck, you know. I'm saying that's where that needs to be done to stop it. Then, you know, what I want people to really, really understand is that it's past time. It is past time for poor people, black people, you know, to realize that this system has failed you. It has failed you. You can't get nothing from it. And what people got to do is withdraw our support from it and start doing for ourselves. That's what we got to do. You know, how long are people going to sit back and beg, you know, this government to do what's right when for hundreds of years all you've gotten is a slap in the face? All you've gotten is this government kicking your ass. That's all. That's all black people have ever gotten from this government.